Ambassador Dr. Deborah Lipstadt, the U.S. Special Envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism, tells a story from when she was a professor at Emory University. A student came to her office, and for the first time in 4 years that she had known him, he was wearing a kippah. Not wanting to be rude, she didn't say anything, but as he stood up to leave, he turned around and he said, "Look, you notice?" "Oh yeah, what's that all about?" she said. "You haven't worn that before." He responded, "There have been so many attacks on Jews recently that I've decided that every time there's an anti-Semitic act, I'm going to wear my kippah and show those anti-Semites that they can't frighten me." Ambassador Lipstadt admired his moxie, his chutzpah, his desire to show his identity and not cower in fear. And at the same time, inside, her heart was breaking because he had allowed the anti-Semites to determine when he feels Jewish. They were controlling his Jewish identity. He had ceded to them the power over his Judaism. In short, as Dr. Lipstadt tells it, he was motivated by the oi and not the joy of Judaism. Lipstadt ends the story saying, "That's not my Judaism, and I don't want it to be his." Amen, Ambassador Lipstadt. That's not my Judaism either, and I don't want it to be any of ours. It's been a hard year. According to the FBI, anti-Semitic incidences rose by 60%. Many congregants have asked me, "Rabbi, are you going to speak about anti-Semitism this year?" Yes and no. So here's my sermon. The best response to anti-Semitism is living joyful, vibrant Jewish lives. Now, to be clear, for those who have witnessed or experienced anti-Semitism this year, we are here for you. We see you. We feel your pain. We are ready to stand with you. We must not ignore anti-Semitism. And we cannot allow our Judaism to be driven by it. The constant barrage on social media, protests in our own backyard, or finding hate symbols in our parks and schools can make us angry. It can make us want to be defiant, just like Lipstadt's student. But tonight, I want to urge you, and honestly myself, to not get sucked down that rabbit hole of hate. It's not worth it. If doom scrolling is not helping you, and it's never helping you, turn it off. Instead of focusing on the hate, focus on the joy. On October 7th, we witnessed the single greatest loss of Jewish life in a day since the Holocaust. Not long after the Holocaust, at a time like ours, when it might have seemed inconceivable to find any joy, German Jewish Reform Rabbi Emil Fackenheim wrote about what he called the 614th commandment. Thou shalt not let Hitler have a posthumous victory. There are traditionally 613 commandments in the Torah. Fackenheim proposed adding one more, that we have an obligation to ensure our Jewish community continues to not only survive, but to thrive. For some, this may sound similar to Ambassador Lipstadt's student, a very negative reason for being Jewish, spiting Hitler. Yet, I do not believe that's what Fackenheim was thinking about. Rather, he saw the education of every Jewish child as a victory over forgetting, over darkness. Every mezuzah hanging, every conversion, every wedding, every Torah study as an opening for joy, a triumph over despair, hatred, and indifference. That is my Judaism, cultivating joy through everyday Jewish living. The traditional Haftarah reading for tomorrow morning comes from the prophet Isaiah, exiled in Babylon and praying for a return to Jerusalem. Over 2,500 years ago, Isaiah writes, Ki besimcha tetzeu uveshalom tuvalun. Go out and joy and be led home in peace. Isaiah is in literal exile in Babylon, but Isaiah is also in spiritual exile. In some ways, we might all feel this way, in exile this year, especially, those that physically live in Israel feel like they are in spiritual exile, distanced from God, dislocated from joy. But if we lead with joy, if we go out in joy, the prophet Isaiah reminds us, we might find some shalom, some sense of peace and wholeness, some escape from the feelings of exile and dislocation, some sense of return. The high holy days are all about joy. We begin tonight with a celebration. Rosh Hashanah marks Hayom Harat Olam, the birthday of the world. With the exuberance of a birthday party, our tradition sets the stage for this season of joy. I even saw a friend post on social media a big birthday cake. Happy birthday, 5785. The high holy days end with joy on Simchat Torah, literally, the joy of Torah. And in the middle of these chagim, in the middle of these festivals, on a full moon, what do? We go out into nature and we build. We're taught that on Sukkot, known as Zman Simchatenu, the time of our rejoicing, we are commanded, V'samachta b'chagecha v'hayita ach sameach. Celebrate in our festivals and have nothing but joy. And you might not believe this one, but even Yom Kippur is traditionally a time of joy. I quote the rabbis of the Talmud who say, Yom Kippur is a day of joy. It is a day of pardon and forgiveness. Chaviva Gordon Bennett, a writer for reformedjudaism.org, notes that while it is true that these holidays ask us to tie our joy to the calendar, our tradition also recognizes that one cannot set a timer and say, this will be my joyful moment. These holidays ask something of us that's more difficult. We must actively set the stage for joy and allow ourselves to revel in it, if and when it arrives. We cannot force joy, but we can beckon it. End quote. We need to set the table for joy and invite it into our lives. Easier said than done. It's hard work, but that's what this season is all about. Doing the intentional work that we know will lead to more fulfilling, more joyful lives. And we must not do it alone. The path to joy is communal. In fact, every time we find the word simcha, joy, in the Torah, it's speaking of communal celebration. Simcha is a joy that is shared. Chaviva Gordon Bennett also reminds us that beckoning joy can require assistance. For those struggling with mental health or with substance abuse, setting the stage for joy may also include a call to a mental health professional. Tonight, we regather as a community to mark the end of one year and the beginning of another. It's an opportunity to look back and reflect on the joy we were able to find this past year, and a chance to think about the joy that we want to invite into our lives in this coming year. As I look back on this year, I think of the moments when my own family worked to cultivate joy amidst so much pain and challenge. Shortly after October 7th, some of our own family were evacuated from their kibbutz in northern Israel and came to live with us here in Philadelphia. Many of you had the chance to meet Dorit and Zohar and welcome them so amazingly into this community. As this year ends and we begin anew, I'm holding on to those joyous moments that we shared. I remember Zohar riding bikes after one of our own congregants helped to get him one, with his new friends from Rosh Shalom, and how much he was welcomed into a local Jewish day school. I think about on Hanukkah when, much to the groans of the rest of my family, I made them all wear matching pajamas that we bought at the Weitz Museum gift shop. And I'm thinking about the most amazing home-cooked Shabbat meals that Dorit made each week with matbucha and schnitzel and her challah, which I have to admit is even a little bit better than mine. In each of these moments, we didn't force the joy. We simply created space for it to grow. For Dorit and Zohar, that little bit of joy gave them the all-important peace that they had been seeking since that moment of their physical and spiritual exile. Isaiah was speaking to them, "Go out in joy and be led home in peace." Another story of joy. Recently, one of our local Philadelphia Hillels, the center of Jewish life on campus, was the target of anti-Semitic protests. While I'm so thankful to the university leadership for speaking out and ensuring the safety of all students, I'm especially impressed with the Hillel students. In the moments of vitriol being spewed at them, those students and staff chose not to engage and get dragged down by the hate, but rather to embrace Jewish joy. What did they do during those protests? They went into the kitchen, they baked challah for Shabbat. For those students who found joy in challah braiding amidst so much hate, Isaiah was speaking to them. Go out in joy, and you will be led home in peace. There are so many more I can think of, but I'll share one last story of cultivating joy. Our clergy have the distinct pleasure of leading Tot Shabbat with our Berger Early Learning Center every Friday morning. We set the stage with songs and stories, but the joyfully climactic moment comes when we take out those stuffed Torahs. The students each take one of those colorful plush Torahs, and we march. We march through our lobby, through our Philadelphia Museum of Jewish Art, past our security desk, to the sounds of singing, giggling, and tiny feet dancing to the joy of Torah. And I have to tell you, Isaiah was right. Go out in joy and be led home in peace. The sense of peace that I and the rest of our team walk away with each Friday morning comes from knowing that there is a future. There is a future generation of children who will one day lead our community with joy. As you think back on this past year, how did you cultivate joy? How did you set the table and invite Jewish joy into your lives? And as you think forward, how will you choose joy in this coming year? What concrete actions will you take to beckon joy? Recently, I found myself getting upset at something I was reading online. And my daughter reminded me of something that I often tell her. You can't control what other people do, but you can control how you respond. There is still so much tumult, so much anti-Semitism, so much pain in this world and in our Jewish lives. And so much of it is out of our control. For so many in our community, this year felt like a year of exile, and we are simply seeking some peace. There is an answer. Beckon joy. Do the work and invite joy to sit at your table. Isaiah's words to his people some 2,500 years ago still speak to us today. Go out in joy and be led home in peace. Shana Tova.